Welcome to the Compass for Being Human, where we educate the ego, emotions, and philosophy for men. There is a popular claim circulating right now that men are starved of affirmation, that men never receive compliments, that men are emotionally neglected by society. This idea gets repeated so often that it's begun to feel like common sense. But when you actually examine it carefully, honestly, and without centering male ego, you start to see that the opposite is often true. Men are not undercomplimented. In many cases, they are overcomplimented, and not because they've earned it, but because society has trained women to appease men. What looks like kindness on the surface is often compliance beneath it, and that distinction matters more than we are willing to admit. From a young age, boys are frequently told they are handsome, clever, special, or destined for greatness. These compliments are not always grounded in behavior, skill, or effort. They are often reflexive, social, and unexamined. Meanwhile, girls are socialized to be cautious, self-doubting, and modest, even when their performance exceeds that of their male peers. This imbalance doesn't just shape confidence, it shapes entitlement. When praise is given without accountability, it doesn't build competence, it builds expectation. And expectation without skill produces fragility, not strength. It's important to understand that many compliments directed at men are not expressions of admiration, but strategies of safety. Women routinely soften language, inflate praise, or feign interest to avoid discomfort, confrontation, or escalation. This is not a moral failure on the part of women. It is a survival adaptation in a society where male anger and entitlement are often unpredictable and socially excused. When a woman laughs politely, says, "You're smart," or compliments a man's appearance, that does not mean she values him. It often means she is managing him. But men, particularly young men, are rarely taught to recognize this distinction. This confusion between politeness and value becomes dangerous when layered onto a misogynistic cultural framework. Boys who grow up believing that any positive feedback confirms their inherent superiority are not encouraged to develop skills, empathy, or self-reflection. They internalize the idea that success should come naturally, that effort is optional, and that failure is someone else's fault. Over time, this produces a specific psychological profile: high self-regard paired with low competence, entitlement paired with dependency. It resembles the Dunning-Kruger effect, but filtered through patriarchy, a narcissistic overconfidence that is never challenged because it is socially protected. What happens next is predictable. These boys grow into men who believe they could do anything, but simply choose not to. They tell themselves they are capable of cooking, cleaning, organizing, nurturing, or parenting, but that these tasks are beneath them or someone else's responsibility. They don't lack ability. They lack incentive because no one ever made competence a condition for respect. As adults, many of these men enter relationships expecting to be admired simply for existing, while outsourcing the labor of daily life to women. When they fail to contribute, they are not ashamed. They are confused. After all, they were told they were exceptional. Women, by contrast, receive a very different social education. They are rarely complimented without qualification. When they are praised, it is often tied to appearance rather than ability, and even that praise comes with an implicit demand for effort. Be prettier, be thinner, be younger, be quieter. Women are taught to earn approval through labor: emotional, domestic, aesthetic, and professional. Even when women outperform men academically, as they now do across many educational systems, they are still encouraged to doubt themselves, to soften their confidence, and to avoid appearing threatening. The data reflects this divergence. Women now make up a significant proportion, often the majority, of university graduates in many countries. They are increasingly present in every sector of society, from education to healthcare to science and leadership. And yet, the cultural narrative continues to center male grievance. Men claim displacement, loss, and injustice, not because women have taken something from them, but because men are now expected to compete on equal terms. What feels like oppression to the entitled often looks like equality from the outside. One of the most telling indicators of this entitlement is how some men relate to women socially. Many cannot function independently in male-only spaces without centering women in some form, either as objects of desire, sources of validation, or targets of ridicule. A boys' night frequently still revolves around women. Strip clubs, waitresses, sexual stories, or shared contempt for partners and exes. This is not camaraderie, it is dependency. These men do not know how to exist without women orbiting their identity, even negatively. At the same time, these men often insist they don't need women. This contradiction is rarely interrogated. They rely on women for emotional regulation, domestic labor, social legitimacy, and often basic life functioning, yet resent women for having autonomy. When women withdraw, when they stop managing male egos, stop over-complimenting, stop tolerating incompetence, these men experience it not as a wake-up call, but as abandonment. Loneliness in this context is not a lack of connection. It is the loss of unpaid labor. Complicity plays a crucial role in sustaining this dynamic. Bystanders enablers, and what psychologists sometimes refer to as flying monkeys, reinforce male entitlement by minimizing harm, excusing behavior, or framing criticism as cruelty. Some women, often referred to as pick-me figures, participate in this system by over-affirming men in exchange for proximity, safety, or approval. Men then use these isolated affirmations as evidence against overwhelming patterns of harm. She said I was handsome. That woman lets me talk like this. She agrees with me. One enabler becomes a shield against accountability. Internalized misogyny amplifies this further. Society trains women to prioritize male comfort, to smooth over tension, to offer praise even when it is undeserved. Men are rarely expected to return this labor. The asymmetry is glaring. Women are not casually affirmed simply for existing. They are evaluated constantly, corrected relentlessly, and praised conditionally. The mirror does not exist, and that absence tells us everything we need to know about who is being centered. This culture of over-complimenting men does not empower them. It infantilizes them. It arrests development by rewarding stagnation and punishing growth. Men who are never challenged never learn. Men who are never held accountable never mature. And when these men fail, as partners, parents, colleagues, or citizens, the cost is externalized. Women pick up the slack. Society absorbs the damage. The men remain confused, angry, and convinced they are victims. It's worth remembering that previous generations of men did not complain in the same way, not because they were better, but because expectations were clearer. Men were expected to contribute materially, socially, and practically. Today, many men want the authority of the past without the responsibility that came with it. They want admiration without an effort, leadership without service, and respect without reciprocity. This is not strength. It is dependency masquerading as dominance. The consequences of this system extend beyond individual relationships. When half the population is socially rewarded for underfunctioning, collective competence declines. Homes become unequal workplaces. Emotional labor becomes invisible. Burnout becomes normalized for women. Meanwhile, men struggle with meaning not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack engagement. Responsibility, not validation, is what gives life structure. Without it, boredom and resentment thrive. If we want a healthier society, the solution is not to compliment men more. It is to stop lying to them. Praise should be specific, earned, and tied to action. Respect should follow contribution. Admiration should come after accountability. Men do not need pedestalization. They need expectation. They need to be taught that value is not inherent, but built through skill, care, effort, and integrity. Ultimately, the over-complimenting of men in a misogynistic society does not elevate men or protect women. It degrades both. It produces fragile egos, unequal partnerships, and a culture allergic to growth. Real equality requires discomfort. It requires telling the truth. And it requires ending the practice of appeasing men at the expense of reality. When men are finally treated as capable adults rather than entitled children, everyone benefits, including men themselves. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.